clap. Spain, a country with 623 kilometers of land border, the land of flamenco, tapas, sunshine, and even football. But what about the history of this country? It's far more complex than these cliches that we have. It's a story of empires, invasions, revolution, and even fragile unity. A story that built Europe and the world that we know today. So, I'm proposing you today to travel back a couple centuries back to explore those key moments that made Spain Spain. Spain's history begins a long time before it was called Spain. Since the prehistoric time I'm talking about, like the Iberians and the Celts was the first to live in this peninsula. Then came the Phoenician, the Greeks, and the most known, the Romans. When the Romans came, so it was from the 3rd century before Christ, Rome conquered this region and turned it into one of the most important province in Hispania, because Hispania was the name of Spain before it was called Spain. And when Romans left Hispania, they left a large and huge legacy. I'm talking about roads, aqueducts, a Latin language, so the backbones of the Spain that we know today. Then in the 8th century, everything changed. The Muslim invasion happened. In 711, Umayyad troops led by Tariq ibn Zayed crossed the Strait of Gibraltar and inflicted a decisive defeat to the Visigoths at the Battle of Guadalete. Within a few years, almost the entire peninsula was under Muslim rule, except a few kingdoms in the north of Hispania. So Al-Andalus became a thriving cultural, economic, and scientific center, especially under the Caliphate of Cordoba between 921 and 1031. We could have found over there, figures like Averroes in philosophy or Al-Zahrawi in medicine. However, in the 11th century, Muslim unity weakened, and by this thing happened, it opened a way for the Christian to advance and get back Hispania. From the 9th century, the Christian kingdoms in the north began to reclaim the Muslim-held territories. So the Reconquista was a long struggle with defeats and victories. Major battles shaped this period between the Las Navas de Tolosa in 1212, which severely weakened the Muslim power, and the capture of Toledo in 1085 and Seville in 1248 symbolized this progress. In 1469, the strategic wedding of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon sealed Spain's political unification. And finally, in 1492, the Catholic monarch completed the Reconquista. The Catholic monarch completed the Reconquista by falling Granada. What I mean by that is that they ended the last Muslim stronghold in the peninsula. This same year also marked a new era, a new beginning in overseas expansion by Christopher Columbus' voyage and discovery of America. Now let's talk about the 16th century, where it was marked for the higher and most powerful time for Spain under the Habsburg, but especially under Charles V from 1516 to 1556 and Philip II from 1556 to 1592. Thanks to the conquistador like Hernan Cortés, who subdued the Aztec Empire in 1521, and Francisco Pizarro, who conquered the Inca Empire in 1533, Spain established herself as the world leading power. I'm talking especially about gold, silver, who were poured from American colonies and enriching the crown, but also causing rampant inflation. Military speaking, Spain was dominating the seas with her amazing armada, and won significant battles, such as the Battle of Lepanto in 1571 against the Ottoman Empire. However, the defeat of the Invincible Armada against England in 1588 marked a beginning of the slow decline of Spain's power. The 17th century was filled with costly wars, such as the 30-Year War that was started in 1618 and ended in 1648, and the loss of the Dutch Republic. In 17,000, the death of the last Spanish Habsburg Charles II without a successor led to the War of Spanish Succession from 1701 to 1714. Furthermore, that weakened more the country. Let's advance in the history of Spain. The 20th century was a dark period for Spain. After the fall of the monarchy and the Second Spanish Republic was proclaimed in 1931. However, growing tension between political factions from the Republican to the Conservative Party plunged the country into chaos. However, in 1936, a military coup, was made by the General Francisco Franco and triggered the Spanish Civil War. This conflict lasted until 1939. It was marked by atrocities on both sides, bombing of cities like Guernica, or bloody repression and even political purges. The bombing of Guernica was made by the Germany's Nazi Luftwaffe in 1937 and caused between 200 and 300 deaths, while in Madrid and Barcelona, they also suffered the same thing. In total, this Spanish Civil War caused an estimated 500,000 casualties that are or civilians or combatants. So as you may know, Franco defeated the Republicans and he was helped by Hitler and Mussolini. In return, he had to help the international brigades. Then, in 1939, Franco declared victory and established an authoritarian dictatorship. So I spoke about Mussolini and Hitler who helped Franco to become a dictator during World War II. But what happened in World War I? Well, in World War I, so from 1914 to 1918, Spain remained neutral. They benefit economically from the trade with both sides. However, so we're going back to World War II, Spain, still under Franco's rule, was officially neutral but leaned toward the Axis power. So Franco sent a division that was called Blue Division. Basically, it was a voluntary force who fight alongside the Nazi on the Eastern Front against the Soviet Union. However, fearing retaliation from the Allies, he avoided full commitment, and later on he had to align with the Western Bloc as the war turned against Germany. Okay, now that I'll talk about the Second World War and how Franco helped the Nazis, let's put it to the side. When Franco was the dictator, Spain became an ultra-conservative nation, and basically civil liberties were crushed, such as regional languages like Catalan or Basque. Estimates suggest that during and after the war, Franco's regime was responsible for around 100,000 to 200,000 deaths throughout execution, forced labor, or repression. So now that we talk about retaliation, forced labor, and death, more than 200,000, the economy of the country was completely ruined. Spain remained isolated on the international stage until the 1950s, when it started a timid opening under pressure from the United States of America. In fact, the United States, when they put this pressure on, it was to counter the Soviet influence in Europe and around the world that was threatening the peace and the United States idea. Okay, so now we know that Spain was starting to open for the market around the world, but it was still under Franco's power until 1975 when he died, preparing his successor Juan Carlos I, whom he expected to continue his dictatorship, but the other way around happened. Like Juan Carlos I initiated a democratic transition that would change the country's future. So after Franco's death, Spain took a historic turn, like the democratic transition with Juan Carlos I. The monarchy was restored under the Juan Carlos I, like I said, and the 1978 constitution established a democratic state. Today, Spain is a modern nation, but still faces challenges: economic crisis, Catalan independence movements, immigrations issues, etc., etc. A history that is always evolving. Okay, to finish this video, now you know that Spain has a big history fascinated by thousands of years and was under siege and under civil wars and things like that. So in the next video, I'm proposing you to have a closer look on Seville and what happened during the full history of Spain in Seville. So see you on the next one.